Donald Trump has announced that sanctions are being imposed on the International Criminal Court. It's being alleged that the institution violates the sovereignty of the United States.
Trump administration is taking the following actions. First, we're authorizing the imposition of economic sanctions against ICC officials directly engaged in ICC efforts to investigate U.S. personnel or allied personnel against that allied state's consent, and against others who materially support such officials' activities.
Instead of having the International Criminal Court monitor human rights around the world, it seems that the United States government will take on this task all for its own. Mike Pompeo, the U.S. Secretary of State, recently came out with a report describing religious freedom around the world, and he touted the United States as the ideal. In the speech, Mike Pompeo trotted out the old image of an exceptional United States that stands above all others when it comes to liberty and freedom.
Our nation is so special. It's the greatest nation in the history of civilization. It is so special that challenges like the ones that we're confronting here in the United States today will be managed head on. There will be a political process that's engaged in. There'll be wide open debate. And our core principles, the fact that we respect every human being because they are made in the image of God, will be reflected in the way that the United States responds to these challenges.
According to Mike Pompeo, American discourse is free and open. It's only in other countries, apparently, that mass protests are taking place. Apparently, it's only in other countries that peaceful protests are dispersed with tear gas and dissidents are arrested and held without charges. Only in foreign lands does the political elite ignore the needs of the people and plow ahead building a police state. No, not in America.
Only 6 years ago, Congress was overwhelmingly pro-police militarization. Nancy Pelosi, Eliot Engel, and over 350 lawmakers of both parties joined together to vote against Representative Grayson's amendment to end transfers of military equipment to local police in 2014.
And of course, America always respects the rights of journalists and freedom of the press.
We have received numerous reports of journalists attacked, harassed, arrested, and detained in the course of their work covering protests in the United States against systemic racism and police brutality.
Only in other lands do allies watch in horror at the mishandling of protests.
We all watch in horror and consternation what's going on in the United States.
Only in foreign lands do we see citizens begging the United Nations to speak up for their rights.
The undersigned family members of victims of police killings and civil society organizations from around the world call on member states of the UN Human Rights Council to urgently convene a special session on the situation of human rights in the United States in order to respond to the unfolding grave human rights crisis born out of the repression of nationwide protests.
You see, the United States is exceptional. It's got a perfect record. It does not need an international criminal court. And it's got solid ground to stand on and criticize other countries. Yeah? Well, these days, even many staunch U.S. allies might strongly disagree with that. Caleb Maupin, RT, New York.